To state it simply, an allusion is a reference to previous literature or history. Examples of allusion abound in popular culture. An Achilles' heel refers to the Greek mythic hero and the hero of Homer's Iliad. This term is used to refer to a person's or a thing's sole weakness. The Midas touch alludes to King Midas, who could turn anything that he touched into gold. It represents the ability to turn anything one is involved with into success or wealth. A catch-22, well, that's an allusion to Joseph Heller's novel Catch-22. It's used to describe a no-win situation or a paradoxical rule or condition. A Sisyphean task, that's a reference that denotes a seemingly endless and futile task. Sisyphus made the gods mad, so they condemned him to roll a gigantic boulder up a hill. And before he could get it to the top, he just ran out of gas and the boulder rolled back to the bottom of the hill, and he'd have to start all over again. A Sisyphean task. David and Goliath alludes to the biblical story of David. He's a young shepherd who defeated this giant with a sling and a stone. It signifies an underdog overcoming a powerful adversary. The sword of Damocles, well, that refers to a story in which a sword is suspended over Damocles. It symbolizes the constant threat of danger or impending doom. Sour grapes. That's an allusion to Aesop's fables, The Fox and the Grapes. It's used to describe someone who belittles something that they cannot have. These allusions, and many, many more, are widely recognized and serve as cultural touchpoints, enriching language and literature by drawing on shared stories, myths, and historical events. The title of the novel, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, that's a direct allusion to a line from Shakespeare's The Tempest, where Miranda exclaims, after she sees a boy, "Oh, brave new world that it has such people in it." The title, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, this alludes to a Robbie Burns poem, Comin' Through the Rye. John Steinbeck alludes to another Robbie Burns poem with the title of Mice and Men. The poem To a Mouse contains the line, "The best laid schemes of mice and men, gang aft agly." Both the poem and the book are about the unpredictability of life. The movie Apocalypse Now. That title is an allusion to a button badge that was popular with the hippies in the 1960s. Except for their badge read Nirvana Now. So why do authors employ these allusions? Well, the basic reason is that by doing so they can make a connection or communicate an idea or a description very quickly. That's the basic reason. But there are a lot more reasons. And it'd be a little silly to even attempt to enumerate all of them because they are as many as the number of poems that contain an allusion. Let's look at one poem. I want to give you a little bit of a warning before I read this poem. It's kind of harsh. It involves the death of a young boy. If you feel like you don't want to go there, you can skip the poem and go to the next section. It's called Out Out, and it was written by Robert Frost. The buzzsaw snarled and rattled in the yard and made dust and dropped stove-length sticks of wood, sweet-scented stuff when the breeze drew across it. And from there, those that lifted eyes could count 5 mountain ranges, one behind the other under the sunset far into Vermont. And the saw snarled and rattled as it ran light or had to bear a load. And nothing happened. Day was all but done. Call it a day, I wish they might have said, to please the boy by giving him the half an hour that a boy counts so much when saved from work. His sister stood beside him in her apron to tell them supper. At the word, the saw, as if to prove saws knew what supper meant, leaped out at the boy's hand, or seemed to leap. He must have given the hand. However it was, neither refused the meeting. But the hand! The boy's first outcry was a rueful laugh, as he swung toward them holding up the hand, half an appeal, but half as if to keep the life from spilling. Then the boy saw all. Since he was old enough to know, big boy doing a man's work, a child at heart, he saw all spoiled. Don't let him cut my hand off. The doctor, when he comes, don't let him, sister. So, but the hand was gone already. The doctor put him in the dark of ether. He lay and puffed his lips out with his breath. And then the watcher at his pulse took fright. No one believed. They listened at his heart. Little, less, nothing. And that ended it. No more to build on there. And they, since they were not the one dead, turned to their affairs. This poem is about an uneventful day in which people are doing mundane things in their ordinary lives in regular places, until the boy is distracted by his sister's call to supper and puts his hand into a buzzsaw. It's a tragic death of a boy who was already doing a man's work. He had a whole life ahead of him. But this poem reminds us that life is unpredictable, and it may end unexpectedly at any moment. I'd call this the theme of the poem. The poem doesn't really go into the grief of those who love the boy. We have the speaker's final fatalistic matter-of-fact line, "No more to build on there." The speaker then observes that the rest of the family, since they were not the ones dead, turned to their affairs. I'm pretty sure they didn't do that within the next hour, but this does mean that the family eventually seemed to move on from this tragic event. Before you say that this is a bit of a heartless ending, let's consider the title. It's an allusion. The title is a clear reference to a passage from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. The phrase, "Out, out, brief candle," is a key line in this passage. Macbeth speaks these lines to his servant right after he learns of his wife's sudden and unexpected death. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Creeps in his petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. What happens to Frost's poem? Especially the last lines when you lay it atop of this passage from Macbeth. It ramps up the tragedy, doesn't it? The helplessness in the face of the randomness of life and death. The pull of a nihilistic interpretation that life is meaningless in the face of such events. This poem was written as the First World War raged in Europe and many a young man was fed into the meat grinder of the trenches. I wonder if behind the last lines of the poem is the tragedy of thousands of loved ones receiving thousands of official letters in which they are informed of the death of thousands of their sons. Anyway, allusion can be a powerful tool in the hands of a skilled poet. Thank you, and we will see you next time.